I want to welcome you to the ARRI Academy Masterclass Kammerimage 2019. My name is Henning Redlein. I'm a long-term ARRI person with the company since many, many years. This year we will do our presentation in a different way. We used to have a director of photography who was doing this masterclass, but we got a lot of requests explaining a bit more what are the different positions on the film set, on the professional high-end film set. So we have a couple of more people. But now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you the Christmas story we want to tell you, and it is presented and told actually by Julio Marcat, ASC. Please come and join me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. There's so many tricks or stories or just general stuff that I want to get into and answer your questions and, make sure that all of you who came from so far away, from so many places, so many countries, spent all that money that you could have used on a vacation. But you came here to talk to us. And, there's something about our industry and our craft as cinematographers where it's an honor for me to be a cinematographer, to be a member of the ASC in Los Angeles, a group that just dedicates itself to sharing knowledge. We're 100 years old as the history of cinematography and those guys who started out not knowing what the hell they were doing. And that's the beauty of it, is that we are all about sharing information. We are all about conveying the passion that we have. And later on, if you guys stick around and you stay till the afternoon, I thought a lot about this, and I stayed up actually a lot of the night about figuring out what the main characters, what the main compositions are of a really good cinematographer. And I narrowed it down to 4 qualities, 4 archetypes. And if you stick around till the afternoon, I'm going to tell you what it is. I'm going to give you that formula. I'm going to tell you that if you practice, you're going to succeed. I'm going to give you whatever hints I have to help you break the mold and just do that extra little thing that will get you noticed and put you on the map. It's from my heart to share, as all of us do, whether we're here, the Kammerimage folks, the ARRI folks I've known forever. My first movie that I photographed was Home Alone. That was 30 years ago. And I shot it with 2 BLs, 2 BL4s, and with Zeiss Distagon lenses that I think we use now for paperweights and, boat anchors are a bag of these lenses. And, we've come so far. The technology is so far further ahead now, but there are some things that don't change. And lighting a face, using a light that works. This is why I put this silly little thing here. This book light. Everybody, who has not used a book light? Everybody uses a book light, right? Or if you didn't, now you're going to use one. Because you hit a light into something, it comes through muslin material or magic cloth material or Depron material, something thick, something beautiful. And it's a beautiful quality light. And I use this light on Home Alone. This was my main light to wrap around the boy's face. And here, 30 years later, I'm doing the same thing. There's lots of LED lights, there's lots of beautiful stuff out there. And I would suggest that rather than getting confused with a lot of the new technology, that you master one thing, that you master one camera, one set of lenses that you know. And then if you need faster lenses because you're shooting in low-level lighting, you inquire about that. And, what's that equipment that's going to help me? But some things don't change. And, lighting a close-up, there's an art to that. And we're going to get into it a little later. But you can do great things with something this simple. Whether the light is coming from the side, whether the light is coming as a skip bounce. We all have our little tricks and our little ways that we do things. but some things are basic, and we'll get into some of those things here. I'm not a very technical cameraman. I like to learn as much as I can and be on top of it, but I've been very fortunate to have people around me that were smart. So, number one, a gaffer. Crazy important that you got to have a gaffer who is going to be quick, who's understanding of equipment, who's not going to blow out all the fuses in a house and then you can't plug into the house because somehow that happens, right? So what I would like to do is, I picked not very long, but I don't want to bore you with too many words. I want to, for the sake of the discussion, on my first film, which I was scared every day that I was going to get fired because I thought they're going to find out that I don't know exactly what I'm doing, that, I knew that I could shoot shots, I knew that I could do a close-up and I could do a medium shot, but what I didn't know was how this whole thing was going to come together. And I worried a lot about that. And the main thing that I did was to get down on my knees and pray, and also become a 7-year-old, and everything was seen from his height. So I spent a lot of time in preparation low on the ground. And I thought, well, kids, for kids, everything is enhanced. Everything is bigger than life. So I thought, okay, the lighting that I do is going to be a little brighter, a little more enhanced. The angles are going to be a little wider because in the kids, for the same reason that when you live in the house and you come back 20 years later to the house where you were raised, everything seems really small, right? Everything is, every room seems really little. Well, the reverse of that is that when you're little, I thought, maybe everything is really wide and everything is wide angle. So right away, I started thinking like a 7-year-old and how the world would be for this kid. And I started thinking about wide angle lenses. And I started thinking about moving the camera from a low angle. And it started to make sense. The other thing that really worried me was when I put all this stuff together, how is it gonna flow? What rhythm will it have? I didn't know that because I never knew about it before. It was my first movie. So what I used to do is I pretended like I was sewing, like I was knitting. And I would be concerned about the stitch that I was doing right now, but I would be remembering the last stitch that I did, and I would be thinking about the next stitch that I was going to make. So I wasn't just thinking about the scene that I was doing. I was very aware of the scene right before and the scene right after. So once you start marrying things like that, you develop a kind of a rhythm and a kind of a style that eventually, works. And it just so happened that we started moving the camera in ways that went together very well. And that got scored. I have to tell you, I didn't know anybody in the industry. So I was so worried about the fact that I was going to shoot shots, but how are they coming together? Well, music is going to be very important, right? So I found out who was doing the music on the film, this guy, and I call him up and I say, hey, listen, you got to help me out here. I'm really going to work hard on this movie. I want to challenge you to work hard on this movie too. And, the music is going to be very important to make my shots all come together. And the guy goes, yeah, I'm thinking about that too. Well, it turns out that was John Williams, and it was Spielberg's music guy, but I didn't know him. So he thought that was fun that I called, and sure enough, his score is masterful in the movie. So so what we should do is remember this basic thing that I did. And when we look at this 5-minute clip, 2 sequences that are my favorite sequences of Home Alone, and then we can discuss a little bit about the rest of it. So, and welcome everybody, guys.
How low can you get giving Kris Kringle a parking ticket on Christmas Eve? What's next? Rabies shots for the Easter Bunny?
Santa, hold on. Can I talk to you for a minute?
Yeah, if you make it quick, Santa's got a little get-together he's late for.
Okay. I know you're not the real Santa Claus.
What makes you say that? Just out of curiosity.
I'm old enough to know how it works.
All right.
But I also know that you work for him. I'd like you to give him a message.
Shoot.
I'm Kevin McAllister, 671 Lincoln Boulevard. Do you need the phone number?
Nah, that's all right.
Okay, this is extremely important. Would you please tell him that instead of presents this year, I just want my family back. No toys, nothing but Peter, Kate, Buzz, Megan, Linny, and Jeff. And my aunt and my cousins. And if he has time, my Uncle Frank. Okay?
Okay. See what I can do.
Thanks.
Wait, hold on a second. My elf took the last of the candy canes home to her boyfriend.
That's okay.
No, don't be silly. Everybody sees Santa's gotta get something. Here, pull out your little paw there. There you go. Don't spoil your dinner.
I won't. Thanks.
Son of a...
Christmas. May I sit down?
So the first film, a blockbuster. How does that feel? Problem?
It was #1 at the box office for 12 weeks in a row. I was, it was a dream for me. I had no idea that the thing was going to come together as one film. So, yeah, it was a great surprise. It put me on the map, and I had a career because of it. So I wanted to stop because let's talk about other stuff. We don't want to sit here and watch movies. We're watching too many of those anyway. Let's talk about, how we can do something. I will tell you one thing before we take questions, or we should die. Funny part of this was that I was so worried about the church. It was so big and a lot of lighting, and I wanted to, in my mind, I wanted to justify. I want to light the windows. Obviously, when I'm inside, there's no logical reason for the windows to have light on them. From the outside, yes, because the church is lit on the inside, so you would see the colors. It's logical. But when you're inside the church, there's really no logic for that. But, logic is for sissies, right? So that in my mind, I put two streaks of light on the exterior thinking, well, at least there's something bright outside. And that's my motivation for, all of the glass windows having light from outside, which is crazy. But I was really scared, and I went inside the church to say a little prayer, and the priest was there, and he was getting ready the things for the Mass, for the Sunday, and he saw that I was so nervous that he came out with a glass of wine, and we shared a glass of wine, and I think part of the reason the lighting is good is because I had a couple of drinks before we did it.
So this was a trick.
Yeah.
Okay, now
the only time ever that's happened.
So this was a film. It was a Super 35. No, it was a 35 millimeter film.
Yeah, 185. And on film.
And now we are at Camerimage 2019, and you presented on Monday evening a very different film, shot in a different format.
Yeah.
Please elaborate a bit on that.
Sure. Any questions on Home Alone, or any quick? Anybody have any wonderings of anything? Okay. Well, we can. Yeah, go ahead. Good question. What filters did I use? And funny enough, I'm using similar filters 30 years later. I wanted the Christmas lights and the highlights to have a little magic star to them sometimes. So I had a netting material in front of the lens, not behind the lens, which does one effect, but it mushes the blacks a little too much. So I had it's like wedding veil material. It's not net like stockings. That's too thick, So that went in front of the lens for lenses that were between 28 and higher, like 32 to about 75. Anything below that would not be good because the wide angle lenses don't do well when you put a net on it. And anything tighter makes the long lens not sharp. And I combined it, at the time, the filter of fashion was black Pro Mist. So I had a little black Pro Mist on it and a net. So that was that. And then, yes, like you say, 30 years later, I'm at Camerimage for the first time, which I'm really privileged and honored to be here amongst all my peers and you guys who are going to be us in a few years. And I wanted to do something different than comedy, so I waited almost a whole year to do a dramatic piece. And I came across this very humble, for our standards, a $6 million budget is sort of a small budget. 28 days filming, 24 days in New York, and 4 days in India. And it's a beautiful story. It's a remake of Susanne Bier film called After the Wedding, which I shot with the Alexa 65 and the DNA lenses similar to the lenses that Alfonso used on Roma. And my favorite lens of that format was the 28 millimeter, that wide, beautiful wide-angle lens that pans over in Alfonso's movie. And I found that it was a story that was very personal with two female leads, which is nice and refreshing to see females in the lead of a movie. And The director was a friend of mine for many years who's married to Julianne Moore, and she's one of the stars, and Michelle Williams was one of the stars. So we shot it with a lot of heart, not a lot of money, but a lot of heart. And I used a lot of available lights. I waited for the right times of day to shoot a lot of it and took advantage of locations. And some of the aerial stuff that you'll see here, they're quick shots, but you'll see they were done with a small drone camera with the Inspire X7, you know, the little camera with the prime lenses. And the key to that camera, because I had to blow up to 65, the key was exposing properly and not just dialing it to a 16 stop like you do sometimes on those aerial cameras. I put filters on it. You know, I put neutral 9, I think, on it. I exposed around 5.6, which I thought, you know, in the middle of the lens, I think the lens is going to function really well there. And then my friends at eFilm really did a beautiful up-res. The color timer, Mitch Paulson, really helped me to take the material and up-res it and make it match the other stuff. So the reason I want to show you this is because it had very little lighting. My main lights were small LED lights, you know. I'll show you one of them later. It's actually my favorite shot of what you're going to see is in an Indian restaurant that's got all Christmas lights in it. And this little panel here, which is a piece of like they call it card, you know, and Light Gear make this thing. It's called the Light Card, and this is Depron in front of it. So this was one of the key lights that I used a lot on the movie, and I would just find the right angle for the girls, and it's pliable, it bends, so you can hide it in places, and it's very skinny, so you can hide it in between things. So it changes color. It can be blue and it can be warm, you know, and it's awesome. I mean, you know, I took 2 of these to India, and I did a lot with them. And you'll see some of it here. So we'll talk about gear later, but I just wanted to show you as an example. That was my main thing on Home Alone. This was my main thing on After the Wedding. I hope you like it. The favorite thing we did on that was when we were shooting the wedding, there were 8 shots in one direction, and of course the sun was setting, and it was supposed to be at the end of the day. So I really loved. I didn't think I could pull it off, but the 20K, that's got the big eye on it, way down on dimmer, with some branches in front of it, became our sun. So for 8 cuts that were looking in the same direction, the sun didn't move. And we shot towards it, sometimes flary, sometimes not, and the flare fit the moment. I'm not a big fan of flares. I don't go out and get the lenses that all flare because they're cool. That's just not my taste. Everybody is different with that, so a flare here and there is tolerable, and that happened there. But I wanted to show this because as you get your opportunities to shoot your film, it's imperative that you pick locations that you can manage and that you can have without lighting, because I couldn't light the interiors of that office building, with maybe just 2 little extra accents, and I couldn't light the exteriors, obviously, and yet it presents itself as an important, and I used the big format to open the movie up and have it have air, because there's a lot of talking in the movie. So I was afraid that it might be claustrophobic. So when you get wide, go big or go home, right? So we did that a lot with that 28 millimeter DNA lens. And then the interesting thing about this format, and I'm going to do this fast, but I think it's really important, the large format with the Alexa 65 is that it becomes very selective and focus in the mid-range lenses especially. The way that things go out of focus is very beautiful, very impressionistic, but sometimes you want that and sometimes you don't want that. In order for me to get the depth of focus and the depth of field on the 65 format, I had to shoot between 5, 6, and 8, where I would normally have to shoot between 2, 8, and 4 in a spherical show to get a similar drop-off of focus. Now, for our movie, that worked really well, because in a sea of people, you could really focus in the attention into, what you wanted to see and connect characters and get into the close-up. So I just wanted to share that with you and pick really good locations when you do your first project. Yeah.
I think this clip was really cool, but it did actually not spoil the story, which is great, because the story is super, the script is super, and the images match so well to what actually has to be told.
Thank you.
So I would end this in the moment.
Okay.
And,
we can ask questions. Think about it, and if you have any questions about it, we can talk later. We're going to introduce some other folks, right?
Yes. So thank you, Julio, for the moment.